Well, it happened again, and I'm really disappointed because you guys didn't get to see it. Oh man, because I watched the first part that you should have watched by now. If you didn't, please go watch the first part of this. It should have been uploaded around the same time. I don't even know how this happened. I was in the middle of reading that article, and then all of a sudden something popped up, and it said attackers might be trying. It says you are not secure. Attackers might be trying to steal attack your thing or whatever from wolfsomethingcave.com or something like that. And then I went here. This is my little recording app, and look right there where it says repaired. Okay, I'm recording here. Hopefully it's better. But I'm so mad that you guys didn't get to see it, because it came up and it said, you are not secure. Attackers might be trying to attack your something. And then my video got corrupted. So somebody somewhere from whatever website that was is stopping my videos before I even make them. But fear not, because we're going to trek back on. We'll go now. This is a part 2 to the first. Okay, this is where we were whenever it said that people were trying to attack my thing. Don't know what that was about. I really hope you guys watched the first part of that video. This should be considered one thing. This is about the Missouri Minutemen or whatever. So go back and watch. Additionally, volunteer firearms, accessories, ammunition, uniforms, equipment, and supplies would be considered state property for purposes of sovereignty and jurisdiction in matters of judicial, taxation, and police powers exercised by the state when a member is called into service, protecting them from attempted federal seizures. Well, they already seized it. Your equipment is considered state property. The bill states that firearms and equipment will also not be subjected to taxes or registration requirements. Oh no, because you don't have to, because they own it now. State property. There's no need for the registration or the taxes, because they already own it. Your equipment. Only volunteers' name and address would be recorded by the department, and the law would also prohibit the disclosure of volunteers' information. And then it says, like, oh, you can get $1,000 fine. So under the legislation, the governor, who would act as commander-in-chief of the Minutemen, would also be required to publish organization, discipline, and training regulations. So it's going to be a police force. There's no two ways about it. It's going to be a police force by the state. That's not what a militia is. They're making it seem like that, and this is a trap. Look, an advocate for gun control with Every Town for Gun Safety, that's Mike Bloomberg's organization, by the way, criticized the legislation. The problem isn't this bill, which is going nowhere. The problem is rising extremism in this country, he said. Not only is it a distraction from those common sense solutions, but it's a nod toward extremists in our community, and I don't think the government should be in the business of that. This is literally a trap. If you are in Missouri and you join this, and you fall for this, don't say you weren't warned. This is going to make people think that they're doing the right thing, protecting America. No, you are helping the tyranny. Moving on. Here's one for you. And I was going to read this yesterday when I went to make videos, but again, corrupted video. And today I found out that attackers were trying to do something. I don't even know. But this is by New York Times. April 1st. Not getting the V? then you won't be seeing your grandkids. You hear that? You won't be seeing your grandkids. Just that headline in the first place is irritating. Because they're literally saying, like, oh, not going to get it? Oh, well, then you're not going to see your grandkids. This is abuse by the state on us. A reader wonders what it will take to convince her mother to V herself against C-19. My mom married a man 10 years ago and became a different person. She is still loving to us, but her politics changed drastically. Among other things, she is now adamantly opposed to V's. When my son was born a few years ago, it was a fight to have her get a flu shot before flying to visit us. Her husband refused and skipped our son's breeze. Now we're arguing about the C vaccine. She wants to visit, but she and her husband refuse to take the V. I told her until she dies she is not welcome to stay with us. She can't believe I'm keeping her grandchildren from her. Where do I go from here? I want my kids to have more than a FaceTime relationship with her. And they're conditioning the public mind to act like this to their elderly parents. You ain't seeing your grandkids if you don't get the shot. And people will. They will act like this. Because old people, they've been the target of this whole thing since day one. Day one. Get rid of the old people who knew freedom in this world, not just in this country. And here's New York Times. Daughter, for starters, stop blaming your stepfather for your mother's decisions. She is an adult and responsible for her own choices. If she's aware of your low opinion of her husband, that won't help. She loves him. Plus, you can hardly pin the ascendancy of political tribalism and conspiracy theories on one man who married into your family. So, of course, in this one, also they have to bring in the whole, quote, conspiracy theorists. I would recast your ultimatum. You're not welcome here unless you're V'd into a statement of concern. I want the kids safe and I want you safe. Until we or you are V'd, let's follow the advice of the CDC and keep masking and social distancing. This gives her an option. Maybe she stays at the hotel nearby and meets you at the park? Yeah. Okay. Are you serious? I want to be safe. I just can't help but not being safe. So until we get this thing, let's continue to do our duty and mask up and social distance and be friends. Let's do what we're told. This is all ridiculous. This never would have flown even 11 years ago. They could have done it with the swine flu. Not like this. Oh, not like this. Now, don't misunderstand me. I get that it's maddening to hear your mother spout misinformation about a life-saving V. Oh, yeah. Oh, you mean like the paperwork that I have that I normally would show, but I won't show right now because most people have already seen it a million times because I will keep posting it. You could pull together a package of data from a wide range of sources for her. You may make some inroads, be gentle, and don't relent. Your main job is to keep yourself and your family safe. Your anger is misdirected. We all deserve to be called by the right name. But if no one ever corrected your in-laws about yours, how are they to know? Some people would ask whether you were keeping your name, others may not. By promising to handle this and never doing it, though your husband let you down. What is this? Is this still the same thing? This is part of this next article. I'm reading an article about women and marrying and whatever. My fault. But yes, this up here, the good stuff. Now, the old people are going to be forgotten pretty much by their families if they don't want to take this thing, which they shouldn't, and we all know that. But they're going to be ostracized to the point of complete, well, either until they pass lonely or they succumb to getting the shot, which is very sad. I seen a 90-year-old woman take that thing, and she was so excited. And I'm thinking, come on, you're already there. You're like at the end. And you're going to take that thing right before... Oh, man. I can't even think about stuff like that. Because I know what it really does. And so do many of you. It's just very sad. It's sad to see that they're making this into like a new social cues. You can even see where it says right there. Like, oh, so we're not going to let anybody around each other until you get the shot. These are actual, this is literal modern day Jim Crow laws. Tiers of society. The VED and the non-VED. And the VED will get to do all these nice things. And the non-VED will not. And eventually will be punished for non-compliance. It's getting real out there, but let's go ahead and move on. I'm really sketched out about this recording thing now. We should be good. I'm about to get a VPN or something. I found this one very interesting, actually, and this is from Homeland Preparedness News, the leading source in preparedness and response news. Biodefense Commission warns U.S. still vulnerable to further biological threats. Even as the United States reels from a year under the thumb of C-19, a new analysis from the Bipartisan Commission on Biodefense released this week warns that without action, the nation remains dangerously vulnerable to another P or biological threat. Interesting. So already they're telling us, is this what Bill Gates was talking about when he said, I consider this pandemic 1, and I think he said 2 as well, and what about 3 or something like that? And he said, in order to be ready for pandemic 2, I call this pandemic 1. So they're already telling us that there's another one coming. But we already know that because the Great Reset and the New World Order agenda. And following it for years, we should all know what's going on. The report, Biodefense in Crisis, Immediate Action Needed to Address National Vulnerabilities, analyzed progress made since 2015 while blasting the nation for being caught unprepared against a P that was, in the words of Commission co-chair former Senator Joe Lieberman, predictable. It warned that the U.S. must learn to act from its mistakes and take action to fix them. This global crisis resulted from a foreseeable combination of mutations, lack of immunity, poor preparedness, limited surveillance, and failure to learn from past Ps, Lieberman said. When our commission released its national blueprint for biodefense in 2015, we concluded that our recommendations could and should be implemented by executive and legislative branches within 5 years. However, out of our 87 recommended action items, government has completed just 3. Took some action to address 54, no action on 24, and emergency or crisis actions on 6 in response to the C-19P. We are still more vulnerable to the next P than we should be. The prevalence of C-19 still demands urgent attention. However, the Commission encouraged the government not to ignore future needs either, and to that end provided 11 recommendations for action. These include putting a great deal of responsibility on the shoulders of the Vice President, creating comprehensive national biodefense strategy, establishing a Deputy National Security Advisor, yada, 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 yada. Basically, I wanted to bring this up to show that they are indeed already getting ready to throw another one on us. This is what they do. They come out and they warn. And they say, well, we're still vulnerable, even after this. And then here in a couple months, maybe not, we'll hear of a new one. And it's going to be even worse. And they'll probably use that to really bring the hammer down. Honestly. They probably will. Moving on. Here's one. And this is from the Intelligencer. Domestic terrorism. April 4th. Biden admin takes steps to defuse domestic extremism. So yeah, they already flipped the script. Oh, we need the troops on the streets. We need to combat these extremists out here that believe in these conspiracy theories about global government. That's what it all leads back to. That and believe in Christ. A month after an intelligence report was delivered to Congress warning of an increased threat of violence from militias and white nationalist groups, the Biden administration is taking new steps to take on domestic extremism in the United States. I remember back then I wasn't alive, in the 80s and 90s, when Bill Cooper was still alive, whenever he was talking about how they were going to make every single person who cares about the Constitution and who cares about freedom, real freedom, they're going to make you into a domestic terrorist. And this is exactly what that is. And the wording of this, people are going to get tricked because it says violence from militias and white nationalist groups. Militia is totally different from white nationalists. Totally different. But they do this because they like to lump everybody in the same group. And they were now able to do all this because of the whole QAnon Trump presidency. So again, if you're a Trump supporter at this point in time, I urge you to please take a look at the information being presented to you. This is the other side of the Hegelian dialectic, is what I'm getting at. According to the New York Times, the plan sweeps across multiple federal agencies as the new president shifts domestic security focus toward extremism on the right, after years of neglecting the issue at a policy level. Yep, and they want you to think that, it all just comes from the right, and the right will say, the left, and they'll both just keep fighting, but the state gets to destroy all groups. And we knew that the left side was going to be the side to actually enforce all these policies, but at the expense of the right side. Because on the right side, they lumped everybody in with everybody that even just cares about America and cares about freedom. You're considered a right-sider. And that's only because both sides now are on the left side of the actual spectrum, which is all the way on the left is total communism and totalitarianism, authoritarianism, fascism, all of it. Total government control over every aspect of everyone's lives. All the way on the right is absence of government, so anarchy. And anarchy doesn't mean chaos and craziness. All it means is absence of government. Because on a scale, you have to have two extremes. So absolutely no government on the right side. Absolute government control on the left side. Now in the middle is where we are supposed to be, with a limited government and with a lot of freedom. But now both sides believe in big government, so both sides are now on the left side of the real spectrum. But now they're just saying, the right side. And then pretty soon they'll keep saying the right side, and all of a sudden, now people are on the right that you wouldn't even think are associated with the right-wingers. They'll just keep scaling it down to the last group. But yes, this is the form it's going to take. And it comes right on the heels of gun control. Because they're going to use this momentum, and they're going to do it this time. They're going to attempt a full-on confiscation. I believe it. I could feel it. They're going to attempt a full-on gun confiscation in the United States. I really hope that that's not the case. According to New York Times, the plan sweeps across multiple federal agencies as the new president shifts domestic security focus toward extremism on the right. Yep, read that. Because last month's intelligence report requested by Biden in the immediate aftermath of the Capitol riot identified domestic extremists as a national priority area. For the first time, the Department of Homeland Security has opened up more funds or efforts to track groups planning violence that are operating in the United States. Biden also reportedly boosted the role of National Security Council team focusing on domestic extremism, which involves officials from the Department of Justice, FBI, and National Counterterrorism Center. Oh yes. Oh yes, all the good stuff that we all rooted for over the years. Yeah, as long as you're doing it in a different country, I don't care if all these giant government forces join into one industrial complex called the Homeland Security. As long as it's not for me. Oh, but now it is for you. And don't think it's just going to be one group, whatever group they decide to talk about that day. Right now it's white people, and on the other side of that, it's also black people at the same time, because they're using the whole Asian race thing, and they're saying that they were committed by black men. So it's like a whole thing that's going on right now on both sides. And if you get caught up in that, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I really cannot do that. People that get caught up in that whole left-right thing and everything that goes with it, also is all the stupid, immoral beliefs and acts that you would otherwise never do, if never exposed to the whole left, right, me versus you materialistic paradigm. All of our lives, it's always been me, I want right now. And then somewhere along the line, and I blame my generation, but I'm 27. I blame my generation because I'm seeing it happen with them. I blame Generation X, which would be my parents. People that are like, well, my dad's 51 and my mom is turning 50 soon. Yeah. Also, well, maybe not their parents, because somewhere along the line, we started teaching our kids that it was okay to want for me, in this mentality of be better than everybody else. Only care about yourself. Don't care about anything else but yourself. And then somewhere along the line, we got to the point where people are trampling people on a night out of the year where you're supposed to be the most thankful for the things you have in your life. Then you go and trample somebody at Walmart because you want to get the newest TV that's on sale. But it's not really on sale. Because if you would have waited 6 months, it would have been down to that price anyway, because they mark everything up for Christmas. Doy. But somehow we got there where people started getting trampled. And I remember it was like the mid-2000s. I was still a little kid. You got to think, in 2004, I was 10 years old. So older people that might be watching out there, I haven't been here very long, since 94, so. But I remember being young and seeing that on television, seeing that lady that got trampled at that Walmart, and I remember being like 10, 11, and just saying, what is wrong? I would ask questions like, because I would listen in history class when we were talking about other countries in the world. And other countries in the world, you can like define them by something. But America, we don't really have our own culture except freedom. Well, it used to be. It used to be that. That used to be the reason that people came here, for freedom. I guarantee your grandparents, my grandparents did, came here from a different country because of freedom that we now do not have in this country, and I wish we did. Freedom is the greatest thing ever, because without freedom, there is none of that other stuff. Everything that everybody likes to do when they get lost in their own little world and what they do in their daily lives, none of that could happen without freedom. That really is our common bond. No matter who you are, no matter what you are, no matter how you look, no matter what you feel in your heart, we all have one common bond, and that is freedom. Everybody likes to be free. That is our natural state. We are born with free will. When you're a little kid, you are free. And when I watch my nephew run around, he's 2, I watch him run around and I just think like, man, to be inside of his mind right now, he has the feeling of absolute freedom, which we don't know now. Absolute freedom must be the greatest feeling in the world. Just imagine that. Imagine being able to do anything that you ever wanted to do and not be stopped by the cops, unless you're hurting somebody else, of course. Imagine that. And not even just that. Imagine just in general. With like free market and stuff. You can't set up a shop in your town now without signing up with the state and going through all the regulations and codes. Freedom offers so much. But when stuff like this happens, when they're using all these different agencies that were empowered under the Patriot Act and given steroids under the National Defense Authorization Act, we're now about to be okay with all the weapons of the state being used against us. They're telling us right here. And like I said, it won't just be white people and conspiracy theorists and whatever. It's not. That's how it starts. It's going to start with the Trump supporters. They're the easiest ones to go after right now, of course. That was the whole point of it. But we're right down here. The team's role had been gutted under Donald Trump. Leaders from the national security apparatus are also meeting with officials from Veterans Affairs and the Departments of Education and Health and Human Services. According to the Times, in what sound like potential preventive efforts to treat the crisis, Attorney General Merrick B. Garland, who helped investigate the Oklahoma City bombing in '95, yeah, he helped cover it up too. And if you don't believe me, go listen to Ted Gunderson, former FBI, and he's passed on now. They killed him, but he was speaking out about this stuff in the 2000s, and he'll tell you about Merrick Garland and the Oklahoma City bombing. And they say an act seen as inspiration for scores of white nationalists in the decades since, has said the Department of Justice would also prioritize domestic extremism cases. Isn't that terrible? This is terrible. Within the Department of Homeland Security, a review process aims to retool how the agency approaches domestic extremist cases. According to the Times, DHS now intends to work more closely with Facebook and Twitter to look for indicators of possible violence. The review also recommends the department focus on preventing acts in which mental health issues play a role in an assailant's act, such as the apparent case on Friday, which a man crashed his car into a Capitol barricade, killing one law enforcement officer before he was shot. Oh, look, and the Biden administration is also in talks with lawmakers to write new domestic terrorism legislation and to issue executive orders allowing law enforcement officials to investigate suspects and prosecute extremist acts of violence more directly. Biden's campaign platform stated that such a law must respect free speech and civil liberties, while making the same commitment to root out domestic terrorism as we have to stopping international terrorism. Oh, yes, so more evidence that they are turning the weapons of the state against us. I really hope you guys are ready to deal with that day. That day is coming very soon. you are going to see Homeland Security troops on your streets, United Nations on your streets. You are going to look out your window one day and that's what you are going to see. Because this is exactly where we're going. And they have to just say that such a law must respect free speech and civil liberties. If you respected free speech and civil liberties, you would lay the hell off. And the same commitment to root out domestic terrorism as we have to stopping international terrorism. So what are they going to do? Start dropping bombs on us? Whenever they talk about these domestic extremists, they're talking about you. They're not. They might single out some groups, but there's 72 plus now different types of groups of potential domestic terrorists. And I can assure you, my friend, you are on that list. Whoever's listening, it don't matter if you are an old man or an old woman and you just sit and you watch TV all day and you enjoy each other's company and you retire at the end of the night. It don't matter. If you have a holy Bible, you're a domestic terrorist. If you own a firearm, you're a domestic terrorist. Care about the Constitution, you're a domestic terrorist. It's all on that list. And I made like 3 videos about that so far. We are all on that list. So when you see stuff like this, consider it as being directed at you because it is. Just saying. Calls grew after the insurrection for such a federal action. Critics warned that the impulse could create similar abuses to those that emerged after the passage of the Patriot Act. January 10th, progressive lawmakers, including Rashida Tlaib and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, signed a letter stating that the failures to anticipate or stop the Capitol riot emerged from reluctance to enforce the laws in place, and that the government does not need new tools to monitor domestic extremists. Well, no, because they have everything they need. I'm holding one of the tools in my hand right now, and they're watching me record this video. Somebody is, because somebody attacked my thing. And I'm so mad that I didn't get that part on film, because as soon as it cut, it popped up. And it said attackers or hackers are trying to attack your system or something like that. Wish I would have got a screenshot of it. Despite consistent warnings from law enforcement officials detailing increasing threat of domestic terrorism, the federal government has taken insufficient action up to this point in stopping the growth of violence. In 2009, the Obama administration went so far as to rescind an intelligence assessment which mentioned that veterans could be vulnerable to recruitment by domestic extremist militias. Under Donald Trump, the threat was consistently ignored as the security state was reoriented to stamp out protests against police brutality last summer. And see, they're going to do this because they're going to make it seem like they're on the left side. Because, we're different than Donald Trump. We're different. No, they're not. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. George Carlin. Office of Intelligence and Analysis filed a whistleblower complaint accusing DHS leaders of altering intelligence reports to make white supremacist threats appear less severe and exaggerate the scale of left-wing violence in a way that was consistent with Trump's rhetoric. Yep, and now they're doing it on the other side. Because that's how it works every time. Every 4 to 8 years, we do this song and dance. Every 4 to 8 years. But yes, the purpose of this article was to show you that they are turning the weapons of the state against us right now. Moving on. Alright, this one's from The Hill, April 4th. Gun control advocates applaud Biden funding plan, but say more must be done. Gun control advocates are pushing President Biden to take more aggressive action on gun violence following 3 deadly mass shootings in as many weeks. Yep, and they're going to do this because what I just read to you, and this goes right with that. A lot of guns are going to be getting taken real soon. And a lot of people aren't going to know what to do. Most people won't notice, won't care, will applaud it. You can never do that. Democrats and outside groups are praising the $5 billion for community violence prevention programs tucked into the president's massive infrastructure package, which was unveiled Wednesday and is likely to get the next big legislative push on Capitol Hill. But they say more must be done. House Democrats this week urged Biden to take executive action to subject concealed assault-style weapons to more federal regulation, and others raised pressure on Senate Majority Leader Charles Schumer to promptly schedule votes on two bills in the lower chamber passed last month to expand background checks. You're just going to keep chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. But I do believe once they have it set up real soon, and they're going to be doing raids like they already have. But they're going to be going after everybody. The extraordinary investment proposed by the Biden-Harris administration would save countless lives in communities that are most affected by gun violence, said John Feinblatt, president of Everytown for Gun Safety. Oh, I'm sure you are, Mike Bloomberg's little yes man. To meaningfully reduce gun violence, we have to both close loopholes in our gun laws and invest in proven solutions. Congress should move quickly on both tracks to deliver the results the public deserves. Yeah, we deserve to be disarmed against all tyrannical world government, all powerful. Yes, that's what we deserve, and apparently we do. But all threats of Senate GOP filibuster standing in the way of passage of the House-passed bills, infrastructure plan may be the most likely route for any violence prevention measure to become law through the budget reconciliation process, which needs only Democrat votes to pass. Community violence prevention funding would be geared toward addressing structural racism and economic inequality as part of the infrastructure's plan. Overall investments in job training for formerly incarcerated people and improving public safety. Yep, so of course they're going to bring in all of it. They're going to bring in the race, the economics, religions, class. They're going to bring in all of it in order to disarm people. Which is weird because a lot of people on the left side also have arms. But they think that their arms will not be taken. But they will. Of course they will. Community Justice Action Fund, nonprofit that advocates for communities of color to combat gun violence, noted that it's one of the leading causes of death for black people and Latino men. The group called the funding Biden's $2.25 trillion proposal historic investment in proactive community-based solutions to prevent violence before it happens through evidence-based strategies. So there it is, pre-crime. Oh, we know that you're going to commit violence. Dude, I wasn't even doing anything. No, we know you were. We could tell just by this, this, and this. You're under arrest. But I didn't do anything. The law's the law. Let's go. Yeah, so apparently they're gonna be able to prevent violence before it happens. A little Orwellian pre-crime there for you. That's exactly what this is. Don't kid yourself. Christian Hain, Vice President of Policy at Brady, another gun control advocacy group, said the funding proposal is really practical and pragmatic and has potential to pass and to be historic. Yeah, of course, they keep using those words. Historic, equality, fairness, sustainable, inclusive, equitable. They literally have a huge list of feel-good buzzwords. These community-based solutions are part of any comprehensive solution to gun violence that should be taking place, Haynes said. Well, the solution to the gun violence that you're referring to would be to end MK Ultra, Project Orion, MK Naomi, and the Patriot Act, and the National Defense Authorization Act, repeal the Federal Reserve, restore the Constitution and the supreme law of the land. That's it. And it says the House passed bills last month to require universal background checks for guns bought over the internet and at gun shows, as well as to extend the review period for a background check from the current 3 days to 10 days. Since then, mass shootings in the Atlanta area, at a supermarket in Boulder, Colorado, and a business complex in Orange, California, led to increased calls for gun control measures. Of course they did, and I told you about it before it happened. I said, this is what they're going to do. This is how it's going to play out. And that's exactly what happened, and many other people have said that too. Because it's predictable. The C-19P resulted in a lull in large-scale mass shootings in public spaces, while other types of gun violence, such as domestic incidents, increased, according to Gun Violence Archive. That changed in recent weeks, starting with the Georgia spa attacks, the victims of which were mostly Asian women. Yes, we know about the big ones. Schumer vowed the upper chamber will take up legislation to expand background checks. This time it's going to be different. As Democratic majority in the Senate is going to act, he said in the Senate floor in late March, alluding to previous failed attempts to enact meaningful gun reform. We don't need any newer laws. Hitler did the same thing. Stalin did the same thing. Pol Pot did the same thing. They say, oh, criminals, murderers, they're out there and they have guns, so we got to take everyone's guns so we could all be safe. And then look what happened. Every time. And there's a documentary you could watch on all of the instances where this took place on YouTube, actually. It's called Innocence, with a TS, not innocence, with a CE. Innocent, with a TS. Betrayed. Innocent, betrayed. And that is what it is. Nearly 70 Democrats signed on a letter form, blah, 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 blah. It's just talking about how they're going to really try to push this gun control stuff. They absolutely are doing that. And I have one more for you guys. Okay, last one for you guys today. Friday's attack is the latest violence at the U.S. Capitol, site of shootings, bombings, and riots over the last 50 years. Yeah, they attacked the Capitol again. We know that. And they're using this to justify the military still being in the city, occupying our nation's capital. Capitol police officer has been killed after a man rammed a car into 2 officers at a barricade outside the U.S. Capitol and then emerged wielding a knife. Suspect died at the hospital. The U.S. Capitol has been the scene of horrific attacks, including the 1814 burning by British soldiers, 1954 attack by Puerto Rican nationalists who shot and wounded 5 lawmakers in the House chamber, and the storming of the building by a pro-Trump mob in January. Friday's attack, where a driver rammed his car into 2 officers in a barricade near the Capitol, was the latest tragic episode. U.S. Capitol Police Officer William Billy Evans died from his injuries. The suspect, Noah Green, 25, died after being shot by police. Here's a look at the other attacks on the Capitol in the last 50 years. A bomb planted in the restroom at the Senate side of the Capitol exploded, causing damage but no deaths or injuries. Detonated by a leftist group, the Weather Underground, to protest the U.S.-backed invasion of Laos. And it just talks about all the times that the Capitol was attacked, which now they're using this and what happened on January 6th in order to help push the domestic extremism, disarming of American citizens. Oh, you don't want to give up your firearm you use for defense? You're a domestic terrorist. And that's exactly what's going to happen. The Capitol has actually been attacked a decent amount. In 2013, somebody ran into the barrier with a car, leading authorities on a 16-block chase to the Capitol with her year-old daughter in the vehicle. The girl survived. That is so sad. That is so sad. A gunman, Russell Weston, rushed past a security checkpoint, killing U.S. Capitol Officer Jacob J. Chestnut. A tourist was injured in the initial crossfire between the gunman and Capitol Police. In the ensuing chaos, the gunman killed a second officer, Detective John M. Gibson, after the assailant ran toward a door that led to the suites of then House Majority Whip Tom DeLay of Texas. Yeah, this is just crazy. Crazy stuff that's going on right now. They're just going to keep the rhetoric going. They're going to disarm Americans first and foremost. They're doing that soon. They're going to play the domestic extremist card. They're going to just keep all of this up and lump the conspiracy theorists, quote unquote, in there, and everything else they're going to do, especially evangelicals and people that are anti-vaxxers or whatever they're saying now. Everyone's getting lumped into the same group. And we are all on that list of domestic extremists. Everybody. Everyone is. So, with that, I will now lead in prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not unto temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.